I think one of the most fun things you can do as an anime fan is when something gets a second season announcement. What is your initial feelings? Do you feel confident in it getting a second season, as if there's a reason for it to continue? Do you think they'll be able to keep up the quality? And if you don't feel worried in the slightest, what do you hope to see from a second season? As even though more may always seem better, shows should sometimes just end at the first season and not continue because they just lose their magic, and a lot of shows get very kind of complacent. They just kind of feel like they know what they're doing and it grows stale. It doesn't take a show as long as The Simpsons to get to that point. It can happen over 12 episodes. So, coming into season 2 of Kaguya-sama, I was ecstatic. I was incredibly excited. Kaguya-sama season 1 became my favorite comedy anime without even trying. I wanted 10 seasons of Kaguya-sama at the formula that it delivered in season 1. That's all I wanted, that's all I needed. If they could make it feel like it was a direct continuation, I was going to eat that shit up, at least for a few more seasons before they'd even really have to change up the formula, restructure it, add in new characters, new comedy gimmicks, and new drama elements. And what I quickly started noticing watching season 2 was that everything that I loved about season 1, it definitely was there, but they also took the series in a completely new direction while still making it feel like Kaguya-sama, and in doing so improved on what I thought was already a perfect formula. And you may say, well, how can you improve on a perfect formula if it's already perfect? And all I can say is watch Kaguya-sama season 1 and 2 and you'll see exactly how you do so. The first season for Kaguya-sama was really important and special to me because it had a very likable main cast. You had the romance between Miyuki and Kaguya, this will they, won't they, who will wear the pants in the relationship. It was a funny gimmick because you could tell both of these brainiacs loved one another, but they were too proud and too worried to admit their feelings first, so they tried to bait the other one into an impossible web of a trap so they couldn't escape and would have to confess their love. Brilliant banter. You kind of start out with a very cold female protagonist who then starts opening up and becomes very warm and lovey by the end of the first season, where you have Miyuki, this kind of like poor kid who really just feels like an honor roll student. You wouldn't think him to be like mysterious or anything like that, but then you see some of his plans and you realize that he truly is the perfect fit for our Ice Princess Kaguya, who becomes one of the most lovey-dovey characters I've honestly seen in the anime medium. Those two alone could hold a show together, and honestly, they kind of did hold a good majority of season 1 together pretty much on their shoulders without much struggle. But then you give us a character like you, who is this kind of loner isolation character who honestly is a punching bag for characters like Chika and Kaguya, who really berate him and honestly belittle him and beat him to death or trap him to just be a tortured subject. And it's hilarious, and you have the potential of roping in some viewers who are maybe similar to his situation. And then of course you have Chika, who is the meme character. She's hilarious, she's honestly has a face for almost every possibility and meme that you could possibly hope to have, while also having this persona that you can't tell, is she an idiot or is she the smartest of the bunch? And that's always a fun dynamic. You could just continue with that. You could probably do 30-ish episodes with just the formula that season 1 laid out, and it would be great. So what did season 2 do that improved on this formula? Because honestly, if you look at season 1, you can pretty much say, really, did it feel stale? Did it feel like they needed to change it up? No, they didn't. It was really solid for at least one season at worst. I honestly don't think they necessarily changed the comedy or drama all that much. I do think the drama got more intense and a little more personal, but it still feels pretty in line with towards the end of season 1 and what happened with Miyuki and Kaguya. And then you have, of course, the comedy, which more or less is still just as absurd. Like, you sometimes watch it thinking you're looking at a Studio Shaft production because of just the artistic shifts. Really only recognize this from like Monogatari because that's how much it shifts around. Yet Kaguya-sama is doing it with every single joke, so it never feels like the same aesthetic time and time again. Unless the joke is similar to one before, then it makes sense for the aesthetic to kind of match what came before it. So if the comedy and the drama is more or less what is in season 1, how did it improve? And it actually took me a little while to figure out what it was about season 2 that really stuck the landing and made me say, you somehow took a 10 out of 10 and improved it and made it a unique 10 out of 10. And that's the structure. Season 1, you can rearrange and restructure pretty much any episode, any joke, any drama scene, for the most part, besides maybe the end of season 1, and it wouldn't feel like it was jarring. You could take some of episode 6 content, put in episode 2, take episodes 2, put in episode 6, because it's the daily adventures of trying to bait in each other into confessing I love you. And that's funny, that's hilarious. I mean, good structure of any comedy series will have a setup, they'll have the main execution, and then they will have the finisher, the conclusion. And a lot of those jokes, I would say a good majority of season 1, you can rearrange in any way you see fit. And even the drama to a certain degree, even if there was this like growth, you can kind of rearrange it so you don't have to touch upon that growth with some of the other comedy scenes, and it wouldn't feel out of place in the slightest. That's why whenever I got comments about, manga readers saying, oh, this actually happened much later and they rearranged it because it kind of fit better with this, it was actually a really fun formula because it wasn't, having to play by the manga's rules. It could do whatever it wanted as long as it didn't take, dramatic development and place it before and a character was acting like they never developed. They never did that. But with season 2, every single episode, I honestly believe you couldn't change in the slightest. You couldn't take a joke from episode 1 and put it at episode 6. It actually feels like every episode is tightly structured and is way more elegant. What I love about this is it took something that already felt pretty solid, and in most authors and studios' hands, they would just run with the gimmick until it starts growing stale, and then they would add more cliches to keep the fan base happy. But with Kaguya-sama, what they did was said, hey, we understand what we're doing now. We understand what we want to do with these characters, how they should operate, how they should act, and how they should be goofy or really dramatic. Now that we have this understanding, let's make every single episode or every few chapters of the manga feel like it's a flow, it's a structure. It doesn't have to be a character development arc. It can just be, hey, episode 1, we have this piece of development, or we have this goofy gimmick. Now, episode 6 or something like that, we can reference that and say, hey, this is what happened from before, so now this is how they're acting in this situation. It seems very simple to say out loud, but honestly, that's what separated Kaguya-sama in its second season to a lot of comedy or rom-com anime series entering a second season. That rather than just playing by the rules that it set out in its beginning, it said, hey, we're going to do something unique here, and we're going to make it feel a lot more structured and a lot more closely developed. That's why when you get really important arcs where you have characters like you, who is a very loner-like character, you feel like, okay, now we're finally getting into his arc. What happened to him? Why was he kicked out of a school? Why does everyone look at him like he's some predator? We get this really great development arc, and then a couple episodes later, we're entering the final arc, we get a very funny moment where it references, hey, I guess he didn't really develop all that much, as the narrator makes a little goofy joke. But really, it's just saying like, hey, everything is connected. Even if we have a dramatic scene, we can have a comedy scene, taking the piss on this dramatic scene just for a little joke, but still recognizing that you has definitely came a long way. And I think the romance in season 2 is a pretty great example of how structured it is. When characters are about to confess, it doesn't feel like season 1 where it's like, oh, is this finally the kiss? Is this finally the romance development? Has the flag been set that they can't escape? You can honestly rearrange any of those moments in season 1 for the most part besides the final episode of season 1, and it's not going to feel like it's out of place. But with season 2, I would argue it would. It feels like every time there's potentially a confession or something like that, the characters remember that and it's referenced or it's thought about in the next confession or the next joke and things like that. And that's really impressive to me, that a rom-com that could have just been funny or just been dramatic found the perfect balance to improve on an already perfect formula, in my honest opinion. Chika is just as wild and absurd as you would possibly hope. She coaches and mentors like she did in season 1, but they didn't just do the same coaching and mentoring as before, they made it completely unique for this season. They made every single gimmick or quirk or gag or goof or dramatic moment that we love about this cast and just rolled with it, because now that we understand their characters, they don't just have to be their initial personality. They can flesh out, they can develop, and that's why characters like you had arguably the best moment in the anime season, and that's saying a hell of a lot because he's not even my favorite character, but he became best boy very quickly after his development. Kaguya-sama is a show that I think honestly anyone can enjoy, whether you're a romance fan, a comedy fan, a rom-com fan, or even if those genres aren't really your cup of tea. I think it just has such a style and identity that honestly a lot of shows are probably going to reference in the near future over the next few years. Because once you have a successful anime adaptation, up-and-coming light novel authors, manga authors, or anime studios trying to craft an original anime will take reference to the big shows that really slapped and really did well. And to have a show where the romance development, even though it's surrounded by so much comedy, it can have these dramatic moments that almost bring you to tears, even more so than its prior season. The comedy continues to evolve, and it had me rolling. There was a couple of moments that I had tears running down my face because I was laughing that hard. It happened in season 1, it happened in season 2. This is a show that honestly could continue to flesh out and turn into something different every single season, and I don't think it would be distracting. We're entering in some of these characters' final year. Season 3 could go in so many interesting directions, but it feels like it doesn't even have to end with a confession at this point. It feels like it could be something that even once a confession happens, there's still room to take these characters in such fascinating directions, and honestly, it could be even more interesting if they do confess and continue the story, or if it does end with a confession. Kaguya-sama doesn't feel held down by like this gimmick that made it popular, but rather it said, hey, we have likable characters, we have a formula that doesn't play by the rules, and we can do whatever the hell we want. And the studio behind this clearly cares about the source material because it is poured with passion. The voice actors continue to get more into their characters, so that's why the absurd or the absolute dramatic just hits so hard. And you can look at it at surface level and say, how can a show this ridiculous actually emotionally move you? But when you see characters like Yu's past, or you see just how Miyuki has lived and just how Kaguya has lived, and then you add in new characters like Miko to the main supporting cast there, it just feels like they know when to spice up the cast, spice up the formula, but it also knows what made it popular to begin with, and they want to keep that formula alive and well while adding in a couple new spices along the way. It wasn't that it drastically changed, it just took what made it great in the first place, and instead of having it just feel like a spider's web, it kind of connects in all different angles, what they did was they kind of made it a fork in the road, where they said, hey, we're going to have a nice comedy and dramatic episode, we're going to fork up here, and then here, and here, and here, and here, and instead of just making it feel like you can rearrange it, it's like the path that they're going clearly is a lot more organic, and it feels realistic rather than just some more absurd comedy that you can maybe compare in Season 1. Kaguya-sama Season 2 was fantastic. It's something that needs a third season, it probably needs a fourth season, but as long as they keep up the quality like this, they freshen it up at the appropriate moments, I think they're going to continue on the perfect formula they already have. And if Season 3 can do it again, I swear I will be completely stunned that they want to get improved on a perfect formula. But if they keep the formula that has been laid out in Season 2, they don't revert back to Season 1 where you can rearrange the chapters and episodes, this is going to go down as one of the best anime in my honest opinion. But as always, let me know your thoughts and opinions down below for Kaguya-sama Season 2. Or this video in question. Do let me know whatever you're feeling. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like to show your support, and remember to hit that subscribe button if you happen to be new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.